Hi guys and welcome back, and today we get on with the Spitfire Beginners Build Along, Airfix's 1/72nd scale Supermarine Spitfire.
Don't just stand there, get
Come on.
So opening them pretty much in the order that they arrived, this was the first one that came in the mail, and this was pretty quick, and this is a little metal jeweler's file. It's a quite nice little unit, metal file. It's flat on one side and it is rounded on the other side. There's a flat side, there's a rounded side, and quite a nice little handle. So I've had one of these for about 40 years. This is the first new one I've ever got, and I quite like it. It looks pretty sturdy. Now, one good metal file like this should see you through just about every need that you might have. Your metal file will typically do the heavy lifting on some of the larger areas that you need to file down and smooth down and get the bulk of the excess material out of the way, and that then leaves you with a bit of a clean up with the softer sponge type file, or even a little bit of very fine grit sandpaper. So one of these files, curved on one side, flat on the other, should see you through just about any circumstance that you might ever have. Next up at bat, and I actually had no idea what this was before I opened it, because I'd forgotten that I'd ordered them, and then discovered that the thing had spilled open as I was opening it, and then I realised it was my little cheap X-Acto knives, although they're not X-Acto knives because they cost less than one, but lots of different blades, 3 different handles, and again, for a beginner's kit, not a bad place to start. This one also slightly perplexed me. I couldn't quite remember what I ordered. This is from my normal hobby supply shop, B&A Model World, and I was genuinely surprised when I opened it to see what was in there. And there were 3 things. So I've got my sprue cutters, the man wire, and look, all these are really cheap. I deliberately went for really cheap stuff. The sponge sanding sticks, and a little bottle of Tamiya glue. So the sprue cutters, they're cheap, but they look sharp and nice and level. Getting the pieces cleanly off the sprue is really important. You can't just sort of bend them off or snap them off, or even sometimes hack at them with a hobby knife. You want a really clean cut, and you don't want to put the plastic under any distress, so even a cheap pair like this would be better than trying to cut them off with a sharp Stanley knife or a box cutter, or even your X-Acto blade, I think. These are good sponges, so I'm looking forward to using those. Infinia, quite a good brand, and 2000 is good because it'll do some fine sanding for you, but it'll also effectively do a bit of polishing as well. They're quite wide, but in the build video that will come out after this, we'll have a look at how we can convert one of these into a few different size sanding sticks, which should serve us across the entire build. And although the kit comes with some Humbrol glue, I thought the Tamiya cement with the little brush applicator just gives you greater control over where the glue actually goes, and you don't have anywhere near the mess that you do from a tube glue and having it leak everywhere. I was beginning to run out of ideas as to what else I'd ordered, and then I had the great displeasure of opening up my really cheap brushes, and just at a glance you can pretty much tell that they're rubbish, but then I only paid about $3.70 for them, or something ridiculously cheap, so they probably won't get run out for this exercise. They might get relegated to doing dirt and bases in the future for other projects. And this is the last package, and it took the longest to get here, and of course, in the scheme of this video series, it was the most important ingredient. It is the little Spitfire from Airfix. It's got the paint, the glue, a brush, and the model itself. So it looks like we've got sort of like a duck egg, a black, and a green and a brown in the paint, and then some painting camouflage suggestions on the back. So we'll have a good look at what's included in the actual kit. And first thing I want to do is just check out the paints, the glue, and the brush. Now I remember these paints from 40 years ago, these little beginner's pots, if you like. And my recollection of them was that they weren't fantastic. And they're probably not really well served if you start throwing them all around the place like I was just doing then. So just get ourselves sorted out here. And I guess first thing to look at is the little tube of glue, 5 mils of Humbrol poly cement. Then we've got the paint, so this looks like the black and the brown, and this looks like the eggshell and the green. The box art itself just references the fact that there's 4 acrylic paints. The back of the box gives the numbers 29, 30, 33 and 90. Beyond that, I guess you have to draw your own conclusions, but it's pretty straightforward, not too difficult to work out. There's perhaps a better look at the Humbrol poly cement. And finally the brush, which is a co-branded, if it comes into focus, Humbrol and Airfix brush, and it looks to be quite nice. So this will probably serve us right throughout the build, I would imagine. I don't think we'll have too many problems. So let's get the plastic out and see what that looks like. So one bag and the instructions. So we'll take a look at the instructions first. It's not an extensive instruction manual, it's folded in upon itself. We've got steps 1, 2 and 3 on the first page. A big step 4 in the middle, which is not that much happening, to be honest. And then we've got steps 5, 6 and 7 on the third page, which pretty much completes the build. If we have a look on the back page, it's got 87 languages telling us about the safety and all that sort of stuff, which carries on to the back page, which contain the assembly instructions. We'll have a look at the decal sheet now, and it's not extensive, but it's enough for what we need for our beginner's build. The only thing I think about this is that I don't like the letters, and I might have done something a bit naughty and ordered some separate lettering for building a specific bird. So if we have a look at the actual plastic now, that's in a sealed little plastic bag. And it looks like we've got 2 sprues of plastic. Always check in your bag to make sure a little piece hasn't fallen off. I've done that before, and you throw it away and then you go, where the hell is that piece gone? So yep, 2 sprues of plastic, wings and the undersection on one, and the fuselage and all the other bits and bobs on the other one. First impressions is, wow, the level of detail, I think, for this scale, for a beginner's kit, looked fantastic. So panel lines and very crisp moulding, not much in the way of flash, so that little bit of excess plastic that can dag around the edges of parts and what have you. Generally, I think, pretty good. So clearly not the original tooling, that is looking pretty sharp. In a separate plastic bag, we've got the clear parts, and that will be the canopy, if I could get my hand in the right place, and a little light fixture that goes in the bottom of the plane, or the undercarriage. If I'm going to build planes, I should use the right terms. So just a close-up of the decals. They look to be in good registry, and I said the only thing, and it's not like I don't like them because they're not good, but BQJ isn't doing it for me. In researching about Spitfires in most recent times, I stumbled across Douglas Bader, and I've known about Douglas Bader since I was a small boy. I read Reach for the Sky probably before I was 10 years old, and I've always been fascinated by him and how he overcame the challenges that he had, having lost both his legs before the war. So I decided that my one deviation from the beginner's part of this would be to order some additional decal lettering and do up his plane. He had the special call registry, if that's the terminology, and it probably isn't. He got to use his initials as DB. And now we'll just have a quick bit more close look at the plastic. As I said, look, I really like it. The detail is fantastic. and really exceeded my expectation. There's not much in the way of flash on any of the parts, so they look to be really crisp and sharply molded. There's good level of detail. Again, for a beginner's kit in 1/72nd scale, I think there's an appropriate amount of detail. I think it's more than appropriate, to be honest. Quite frankly, I'm blown away. So the more I looked at these parts, the more excited I became about doing the actual build, because I'm optimistic that it'll come up really, really well. Looking forward to seeing the finished product. So the other thing we'll look at is those clear parts, which I somehow awkwardly couldn't manage to get my hand in front of the camera just moments ago. So we'll do a couple of still pictures of those right now. And they're really clear, crystal clear in fact. So we've got to be careful when we put these in that we don't scratch them and we don't discolour them with the glue. So we'll work our way through that later on in the build. But yeah, raring to go. Everything's set up for what should be a real good fun build. So what's next? Well, the next video to come out, which should only be in a few days' time, will be the build. All that's filmed. I've just got to put it together and do the narration. Following the build will be, and that will get us to virtually completed. Then the next video after that will be the painting of it. And hopefully by that time my additional decals have arrived. And then there'll be a final video after that, which will be the final reveal. And also I've got an idea for a little display base that I think might work quite nicely for this, so that'll be included at the start of the final reveal. So 3 videos to come after this: build, painting, and final reveal and base. And that will be it. So look guys, just a quick one. Thank you very much for watching and tuning in. If you are following along, hopefully you're all set up and ready to go. And as I said, next video out, which will be the build video in just a few days' time. So I hope everyone's doing well, and certainly as things start to relax around our restrictions, just still be careful and look after yourselves. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, all.